News Radio 840 WHAS. Good Sunday morning. Bob Sokoler, the Louisville Real Estate Show, as we head towards Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks. We're getting all of us ready for it. And is here getting ready for it, you may ask? Well, I'm glad you did. Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys, is joining us once again. You can reach Kevin and everybody over at Pitt and Frank. They do great closings, and you can pick the attorney that you want to close your loan. 895-9900 is Kevin's number. Also here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Also here, another great guy who is the head guy over at Home Team Inspection Service, or as we like to call it, Brad Lawler Inspection Service. No, it is Home Team Inspection Service. You can reach them. They come in as a team. They're the #1 home team inspection service in the country. Now 7, hopefully soon 8 years in a row. You can reach Brad and his folks at 844-411-TEAM. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler. Hey, you can reach me anytime on my cell phone, 376-5483. If you're thinking about listing your home now, next year, years beyond, call me, free consultation, no commitment. We just talk, figure out what the plan should be. Also, if you're looking to buy a home, I've got 12 agents who are ready to help you. If you want to see a copy of this show, because we're doing this still as a Zoom show, so it gets sent to 840 WHAS and gets sent to YouTube all at the same time, pretty much. You can see a rebroadcast and the video of the show at the same time. Go to LouisvilleAnswers.com. That's www.LouisvilleAnswers.com. And what we do is we take your questions in the form of an email. Bob at WeSellLouisville.com is direct phone number, or the email address. You can also call me. But the email address, Bob at WeSellLouisville.com, and put radio show question in the subject line and the question in the actual body of the email. And I don't know if I mentioned it. You can reach me on my cell. I did, 376-5483. Okay, here we go. So this one is an interesting question. We'll start off with Brad. I haven't heard this before, but Brad, hopefully you know the answer. Matthew just bought a home, moved in, and he sent us an email as he has heard us talk about. He says he works from home and depends on his internet and Wi-Fi to work dependably. But he noticed that whenever he runs his microwave, his computer stops communicating with the internet. Is there some sort of cause effect going on there?
That is an interesting question. A lot of people are tracking EMF in their house. I'm thinking though, a microwave's not really putting out EMF. It's not exactly how they work. So I don't know. It's unless he's got some sort of a power surge that's messing with the router, causing some sort of a blip there. He may want to try plugging his microwave into another outlet, or plug his router into another outlet.
But if it's built into the wall, I don't think his microwave is going to go anywhere to plug in. But I get the point. If
it's built in, but if it's a countertop unit, but you may want to just plug the router in, because it may be an electrical. He may be having a surge there that's knocking out some of the power to the router, to his computer too. So that's where I'd start.
Could the microwave be misfunctioning? Could the microwave?
I don't think so. I don't know that would be any cause, because it's not using magnetic frequencies there. So
there is the word wave.
There is, yes, but waves. I don't know that. But those are all shielded. I know people with pacemakers aren't supposed to stand close to them. So as a precaution, but I don't know, unless he's got a microwave from the early 70s.
Well, I don't know, but listen, if you have this problem, when you turn on your microwave to cook something and you lose connectivity, let us know, because maybe there is something to it, and maybe Brett just do some research down the road. We'll see
it sounds like an electrical gremlin.
All right, we go over to Kevin Dissler with Pitt and Frank. All right, so listen carefully to this email, Kevin. Well, this is going to need some real hard thinking. Arnold writes in that he bought a beautiful home. In fact, he would call it his dream home, but because Richard, who's the seller, had not found his next home, Arnold agreed to let Richard, again the seller, stay in the property after closing and pay rent to Arnold for 3 months. So that's always a concern. Make sure you have an attorney write up that document so far, right, Kev? You agree with that?
It's called a post-closing occupancy agreement.
Got it. There's a reason for that, because now we fast forward 1 month, and Richard, again, who's the seller and is also the renter, because he's no longer selling, he sold it, he's renting, fell off a ladder at the home. Apparently, Richard had no insurance and insisted on suing Arnold, the new owner, because he said they were responsible. Apparently he was doing something in the house and he fell. So Arnold, who is the buyer and now owner, is countersuing. Richard is refusing to move out of the house even after the lease expired. Arnold says the whole thing is just a complete disaster. What's the next step? Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why we always suggest that a post-closing occupancy agreement, if there's any other way to do it, to avoid it. And again, I've been doing this a long enough period of time. We had one where they got divorced 2 weeks after the closing. The soon-to-be ex-wife refused to get out. The worst one was someone actually committed suicide a couple weeks after the closing. So those type of situations can occur, and that's why it's good to have possession day of closing, which is standard in the industry. Sometimes you'll do 3 days, something like that, but it's a short period of time. And the other reason, it's a post-closing occupancy agreement, not a rental or lease agreement, because it puts you in a
Landlord?
Yes. Well, it makes you a landlord tenant, and then there's protections available under local law as well as state law. If you're a tenant, like they refuse to get out, an eviction, there's a whole myriad of legal rights that tenants have. So it's always got to be framed as you're not a tenant, you are a occupant, which is a short period of time. It's like a license to use the property for a short period of time. So they got themselves in a quite the pickle, I guess is a good way of saying it. And the attorneys will probably feast on it for a little bit. But, in that situation, you just have to talk to your insurance agent. I'm thinking about doing this. They're going to be in there for 3 months. Here's what type of policy can the occupant provide? What kind of policy do I need to cover me for all these contingencies? Because a lot of time, a homeowner's policy will only cover you for a very short period of time after you've sold the property. You don't have an insurable interest anymore. See an attorney, talk to your insurance agent, avoid it at all costs if you can, and just make sure if your insurance agent says they can't cover you for these type of risk, you got to say no.
Yeah, and again, the key thing to take away, folks, is there are forms on our GLAR, the Greater Louisville Association of Realtor website that we can use, but it's so much better, it's so much stronger if an attorney like Kevin does this and writes it out and then gets signatures, so you have some teeth in it if the other side doesn't perform.
Well, that's what's common though. Is you all have the forms. It's always usually in your normal deal. It's be what, a 3-5 business days,
right?
Yeah,
3
days.
months. That's crazy. That's a long period of time. So, all right, we're moving on. Back over to you, Brad. By the way, son Greg is off next couple of weeks. He's up in New York for a family wedding that I'm attending as well. So, AJ wrote in this email, he's buying a home that appears to be not very energy efficient. In fact, Brad, I sent you an email on this a couple of weeks ago. He said he'd like to save some money on his heating and air conditioning costs. And he read about something that's apparently brand new. And folks, this is rather interesting. Even I'm interested. It seals leaky air ducts by doing some sort of coating of the inside of the air ducts.
Yeah.
And he's wondering, do we know anything about it?
Yeah, so it is brand new. We did a little bit of investigative work, and I worked with an HVAC company owner who has a lot of familiarity with energy audits and sealing up houses. This product is so new, no one knows anything about it.
Wow.
When you read about it, though, there's a few things that stand out as a little bit scary because it is going in as what they're calling nanoparticles. I think it was a PVC, polyvinyl chloride type of nanoparticles that are sent in. But the way that you read it is that they stick to each other. Now, anything that sticks to each other means that other things are going to stick to those things that stick to each other. So while it's sealing up cracks, the questions that came up immediately were, how sticky does this remain? And there is no information out there from this entrepreneur who has created this product. So this one may be one of those products that's so advanced that there's unknown side effects of putting this into your home. So Anytime we can seal up cracks, anytime we can seal up, small areas that air can flow in and out of, it's definitely making your house more efficient. But right now, we probably are looking at windows, caulking around those windows. If you've got a leaky door, replace the weather stripping on it. If you live in one of those older homes with that 1-inch gap underneath the door, get one of those little draft protectors, those draft dodgers that just slide under the bottom. Those things will gain you a lot of energy efficiency for the cold weather that is to come. We're already dealing with a little snap of it right now, but I would probably do those things before I would start spraying sticky chemicals into my air ducts.
By the way, speaking of those little things that slide under your door, just this week, I replaced one that slid under the door. This one attaches with Velcro on the inside of the door, but doesn't go on the outside of the door. So I'm testing that out. Amazon had it was like $12.
Yeah.
I'll keep you posted on whether or not it's worth the time to buy that if you're thinking about it. By the way, if you'd like to hear what sellers are saying about us, head to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. By the way, you can also read reviews about us and go to LouisvilleZillow.com for Zillow reviews or LouisvilleGoogle.com for Google reviews. All right. Trish is writing us and buying a home up until this past week, Kevin, because the lease on her apartment was up at the end of October. Her agent persuaded the sellers and the seller's agent to let Tish, I guess it's Tish, not Trish, Tish put her furniture into the garage. Now, this is also dangerous, don't you agree? Here we go.
Yeah, here we go.
So, but Wednesday, the financing fell through. Okay. The seller found out he could not keep the good faith deposit because based on the contracts, the good faith deposit does go back to the buyer if the financing falls through. Our contracts in Kentucky or Louisville are written in favor of the buyers, not the sellers, folks. And so the seller decided to hold the furniture in the garage for $5,000 ransom. So Tish is now out of her home, the one she wanted to buy. She's out furniture and now staying with friends. What can she do, Kev? Another one of these predicaments.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that usually the difficulty is on closing and possession and trying to work all the movers out. You have a situation, it's just good compromise sometimes to allow the buyer to move it into an empty garage, and while it gives them more time for the seller to vacate the property. But in this case, he's basically converting personal property that he does not own and has no right to. So I think that he could get into quite a bit of trouble, not only from a civil standpoint, but perhaps even criminal, in that he was storing it. She's asked for it back. He knows it's not a property. He has no right to now he can require that she be insured, that she bring licensed movers to come move it out, things like that, a reasonable approach. But you just can't hold her furniture hostage until you come up with a good faith. I think she probably needs to talk to an attorney sometime fairly soon, and maybe a nice, fairly pleasant letter at first would have the gentleman come to his senses a bit.
We're going to take a break. Again, I wish you the best on this, Tish. When we come back, among the things we're talking about, tips from a burglar to help you protect your home. With us and continuing till the top of the hour, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, 844-411-TEAM. Kevin Dissler is one of the head honchos over at Pitt and Frank Attorneys at 502-895-9900. And you can reach me, Bob Sokoler, to help you talk about the plan to list a home this year, next year, or beyond, or to buy a home. You can reach me anytime, day or night, 376-5483. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS. Thank you, Barbara Corcoran, who's our mentor, friend, and wise businesswoman as well, knowing her in person. With us as we continue to the top of the hour, Kevin Dissler, Pitt and Frank Attorneys at 895-9900. Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service at 844-411-TEAM. My son Greg has the day off, and you can reach me to help you with the selling plans, buying plans, anytime, 376-5483. That's 376-5483. All right. Brad, this is an interesting question for not only you, but for all of our listeners. Bill writes us and says, what should the minimum temperature be on your thermostat in the house during the winter? So let me ask you that. So, and then we'll get into the meat of Bill's question. So what should it be if you're going to go away on vacation or out of the house for a couple of days or even away for a trip during the day? What would you set at the very minimum of the heat?
So I believe, Bob, that most thermostats do not go below 58 degrees. I think 58 is the minimum that you can set a thermostat. Some of the new electronic ones, you may have different settings. However, you're somewhat limited. I know it used to be that you would hit 60 and then the next one would just say low. So you're probably going to be limited by what the thermostat itself is. Now, there are folks who actually will go on vacation and they turn their thermostats off.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at the last couple of days that we've dealt with. I mean, we've had what 75, 76, 77 degrees on Wednesday, and now we're looking at highs around 40, and we're going down to what 21 degrees here in the next day or two. The weather can change very quickly, so it may be tempting to just shut it off, but I would encourage everybody to just leave the thermostat, turn it as cool as you can when you leave, because it doesn't take long in some houses for those pipes to freeze up, and the damage that one burst pipe can do is going to negate any type of energy savings that you've had shutting those systems off. So you want to make sure that your house doesn't freeze up. The HVAC guys will tell you, the energy experts will tell you too, that keeping that lower temperature and not allowing it to go so cold that you have to basically thaw your house out is going to save you energy, particularly if you have electric a heat pump that has to run auxiliary heat in order to bring the temperature of the house back up to a comfortable zone. That burns a lot of energy to make those big swings.
Yeah. So the reason Bill was asking, he says his brother neglected to schedule an oil delivery while he was on vacation, and then came home to a home with no heat, 2 feet of water coming from broken pipes, and then black mold. So Bill is extremely worried about keeping a home at the proper temperature. So folks, don't do like Bill's brother. Right? Schedule the oil if you're going to be away, and make sure the heat, and it might be worth it to have a neighbor or friend come over and check to make sure that the heat is on, right? Okay. We've got some tips. I think this is fascinating. I'm going to go through these very quickly. If either of you two gents would like to jump on these, these are things a burglar won't tell you. So some of these are common. If you had workmen in your house, let them use a bathroom. Be sure to check all the windows and doors to confirm nothing has been left unlatched. Follow that drift. Make sure newspapers, mail picked up, because criminals are looking for those types of clues. If it snows outside, have a neighbor on standby to run their car over your driveway or leave foot tracks to the house to show someone is living there. If you have a glass front door, don't let your alarm company install a control panel where it's visible from the outside, because burglars will look to see if it's armed. Burglars also know security companies will arm windows over the sink, or they'll look for windows over the sink on the second floor also. It's not a bad idea to put motion detectors up there and on the first floor. Burglars also knock first before you answer the door, because they're looking to see if anybody comes to the door. And clean your gutters. I'm not sure why that one's there. Burglars also know that you think they won't look in your sock drawer for valuables, but in fact, they check dresser drawers along with bedside tables and medicine cabinets almost immediately. And I will tell you, having been broken into in my house about 6 years ago, the first thing because we came home, the dresser drawers, everything was taken out and thrown around. So it does happen. And among all, I think, get an alarm system if you can. It's more important than you think, especially as everything deteriorates in our world from where we are to where we're going. All right, back to you on this thing, Mr. Disler over at Frank. Rick has an unusual problem. He is looking at homes in the Louisville area with his agent, and they found one that had been remodeled top to the bottom. That's great. In fact, the owner was there at the time of the showing to explain all the updates. So Rick went home and immediately put in a full price offer with his agent. 2 days later, Rick's agent got a call from the listing agent and said he has a problem. The guy who was in the home showing it off turned out not to be the actual seller. Additionally, the signed contract was with the guy that Rick and his agent met at the house, and didn't have anything to do with the actual owner. So this guy took possession of this house and somehow fooled the agent into listing it and then representing him. Rick asks, have you ever heard of anything like this happening? What can he do?
Oh yeah, it used to happen quite a bit after 2008 with a lot of empty homes that were in foreclosure. And again, once you have access to the property, there's an assumption on everyone's part that, well, you're living there. Certainly you have the right to be there. But in the case with the foreclosures in '08, people just left. They turn over the keys, considered a bank problem at that point in time. But in this case, the person was, I guess, impersonating the owner, but you kind of think as we go through the process of trying to close and trying to get some funds, how is he going to pull it off? So that was kind of my question. Where's the payday at the end of it? Other than, like you kind of talked about earlier, about crime and just the number of, can you say, people that have some issues upstairs that are around. So the contract would be, of course, void. You could sue the person that was there impersonating the owner.
If you can find him. Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's got a massive net worth to go after anyway. So it's probably just one of those things that you just have to, okay, and then probably move on.
All right, let's head back over to Mr. Luller. Georgie had bought a house and was with his inspector as they were about to walk through the house for an inspection. But they were shocked to find on a coffee table in the living room empty liquor bottles or 2 or 3 bongs. They went up to the attic and opened the door, Brad, and they found apparently something adult, we won't repeat it, in a corner. So Georgie is wondering, is this typical for inspectors to see things like this? And she also wonders, should the items have been reported to the police since some of them could have been illegal? What are your thoughts on that as an inspector?
So an inspector is only there to look at the structure of the home. And we don't look at contents. I'm sure there are things in so many homes that we will come across, but they don't make the reports. Now, if it's something that is an outright danger to somebody, we're going to report that, back over to listing agent, just to make sure that, they may not know that there was a danger in there. Like we came across 11 bare wires in a basement here not that long ago, and one of them actually touched the face of my inspector, who ended up getting his jaw, the muscle in his jaw, kind of locked up for a while. But the dangerous things like that we will report. The other thing, a lot of times when we're doing commercial inspections, and we do a lot of these, particularly in multifamily homes or apartment complexes, there are areas that have locks on, say, hatches that go into the attic, and we have to gain access to those because we have to check firewalls and other systems in those attics. Oftentimes the tenants will put their own locks on there because they're using them as personal storage areas. And we've run into some situations where landlords have had to go in, remove the locks for us to gain access, and the landlords come across items and paraphernalia that would be illegal. So as the home inspector, we're out of that, but there's been quite a few times that landlords have had to deal with illegal paraphernalia stored in areas that were not technically accessible to those tenants. So that's a long way of saying, Bob, we don't really care about the contents of the house. That's not what we're looking at, but it happens. Yeah, it does happen.
If you are thinking about selling your home now or in the future, we can help you. Go to bobsellmyhome.com. That's bobsellmyhome.com. Fill out the form and we will reach out to you. All right, Kevin, I think we got time for one more question for you. Now, Cora actually writes in. Her mom was selling her home. This is her mom's home. They had accepted an offer and were scheduled to close at the end of this month, November. But a couple of days ago, Cora's mom passed away. And now no one in the family can find the will. So they're wondering how to handle this. And this also brings up a really good point for all of our listeners. But let's talk about this first. No will that can be found. Where would you go on this?
Where would you go to try to find one?
Well, no. And what would the next step be? Yeah.
And we have the situation come up. Technically, it becomes part of the mother's estate. I'm assuming she was not married. Most couples take with survivorship. in which case you can go intestate and go to probate court and get a family member appointed to be the personal representative of the estate. Usually in that situation, you have to post a bond. I think the appeal period is 30 days. So say that Bob gets appointed, you still could not sign a deed for a period of 30 days to allow any party that may be aggrieved a chance to appeal. That's why I would suggest sometimes in situations where you have an elderly person, what we'll do is we'll either set up a quick LLC, a quick trust, put the property in that just so this situation doesn't occur. And like I said, you can do it, but it's going to probably extend the closing date 60 to 90 days in order to get it closed. And these days with interest rates and what they're doing, if you delay, you may lose a rate lock. It gets very expensive. Then the question is, okay, if you have to pay $1,000 to extend the rate lock, should the buyer be responsible for that?
Yeah, or the seller.
Yeah. So I think we talked about before, it's really, everybody needs to get a will.
And that's the point, right? Isn't it? That's what we need to talk about more than anything else, is take a lesson from this. Don't let your loved ones hang if something should happen to you. Make it kind of a holiday plan to talk to an attorney, right?
Well, and that's what you need a will, you need a power of attorney, and then you need a living will, which is basically appointing someone to take care of your healthcare decisions. I can just say quickly, power of attorney, it's in the state statute. It's a state form you can download. You can download the living will. I don't suggest it, but you can go online and get a will downloaded for free. Anything's better than nothing, but it's best to have an attorney in that process. But this happens so often, Bob, that it's amazing the percentage of people that don't have wills.
And Kevin, you can do this. You and the attorneys at Pitt and Frank can also help on this, correct?
Correct. And we have done it in situations where maybe a death is imminent. We will put together a quick trust and put the property in the trust just so that the transaction is not going to be held up.
All right. With that said, we are going to say goodbye to Kevin Dissler at Pitt and Frank Attorneys, and you can reach him not only for closings, but for wills and the like. 895-9900. Also, Brad Lawler, owner of Home Team Inspection Service, 844-411-TEAM. Thank you, guys. And you can reach me anytime to help you with your home list, plan, sell, buy, whatever it might be. 376-5483. That's 502-376-5483. We're out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.